Expat View. I'm Stacey Laves-Khalifa, and this is Shenequa, Aranda, and she is the owner of Premier Baby Planning. And she works with a great deal of expats and has an incredible business that we thought would be beneficial for you to learn a little bit about. Shenequa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your expat experience?
Sure. I'm originally from Chicago. I got my degree in finance there, got my MBA there, and that's where I met my husband. And we actually moved to Houston. We lived there for 2 years. He wanted to work in the oil and gas industry and got a job with a big company. They moved us to suburbs of Philadelphia. Lived there for exactly 365 days. Then we went to Singapore for 2 years, London for 2 years, and now we've been back in Houston for almost 3 years.
And your husband is from Belize, right?
Yes, he's from Belize,
okay.
yes.
Right. Can you talk to us a little bit about, you've been an expat, you're an American born, but been an expat, and you had shared with me that repatriating was really a challenge for you coming back. Can you talk a little bit about how that was difficult for you to come back to this country after being abroad for several years?
Yeah, well, you know, being an expat, especially expat wife, who's the trailing spouse and moving with my husband, is already a challenge. I wasn't prepared for the challenge of coming back home, so to speak. Even though Houston is not my home, I am American. It was very difficult because I felt like I was overwhelmed and I had to reintegrate myself into society. My accent had changed a little bit, just moving to so many different places. People would say, well, where are you from? And I'm like, well, sort of from all over. That's kind of how I felt. But things had changed when I come back here. And I had changed. I had really learned from my experience. And I felt like I had become more of who I was meant to be. And had all these exposures to all these different cultures, and I felt like I didn't really have someone to share that with, and it was tough. It was also hard finding a job. I was not expecting that. I expected to come back, and I expected employers to love my global experience because I kept working throughout my all the different moves that we had. I expected them to embrace that, but instead, you know, they saw me as a risk. Well, you're moving around with your husband constantly. And so, you know, after a while, I just said, forget this. I'm going to start my own business. I had a baby, and I started Premier Baby Planning. Yeah,
can you share us a little bit what it means to be a baby planner? I'm sure our audience is not really aware that there is a niche for this, and this is something that you've started where you work with expats, and you've been able to use your experience. Shenequa has a little boy. He just turned 2 years old, and so she came back as an expat to a country where she was familiar with, but it was still a challenge for her because she'd been abroad for so long.
That's right. Basically, baby planning is like a maternity concierge service. Someone to help you research baby gear, coordinate things for you, recommend products and services. It's a neutral, kind of non-judgmental person to help you get through it all. And I felt that I needed that. I was actually working full-time, contracting as a project manager when I was pregnant. And I just felt like I didn't know a lot. I got pregnant shortly after I returned, so I didn't have a lot of friends. I had no family to support me, and just working full-time, I was busy. And for those of you who aren't in the baby industry, things have changed a lot. There's so much out there. There are tons and tons of products, and you go into the store, you're not really sure what to buy, and obviously, you know, you go to a retailer, they're not going to necessarily take the time to understand your entire situation. So maybe they're not recommending the right products for you. And so that's what a baby planner does. A baby planner looks at your situation and recommends things for you. And basically you just pay them by the hour.
Right. And what's interesting, what she brought up also, is the fact that she came here, although American, she didn't have any support from her family. And most expats, when they come to this country, are coming without family. Their immediate family, their husband, or if there depends on the trailing spouse, and maybe their children. That's their immediate support system. So there is no family to be there. Maybe when the delivery comes to help them set up, they might not speak the language. They don't understand the products. They look different. They have to deliver in a hospital that they're not familiar with. And can you talk to us why you decided to focus your business on working with expats?
Well, my business is not just for expats. I work with a lot of professionals, people who are adopting or using a surrogate or on bed rest. But I'd say 75% of my business is from expats. And because there is the language barrier there, I work with people who maybe in their native language, they haven't been around children, and so they don't even know which words to use in their native language, let alone in the U.S. So like onesies, for instance, or birth doula. People just don't know what those terms are. And so I can help them with that because I have friends who've had children abroad, and when I was living abroad, you know, I had friends having babies and things like that. So I'm familiar with a lot of the terms in different countries. So language is huge, but it's also just not having that support system. I'm that person that I can empathize with them. I totally understand what it's like to be that expat wife, that trailing spouse who has no one around to listen to you or talk to you, and you're not really sure who to trust. And I feel like just because I've had that experience, you know, I have a connection with them.
That's right. Trust is a big factor.